Friends, the weekend went by in a relatively calm mode. We saw a little dump that was immediately bought back up. A new all-time high on Hyperliquid on Sunday. No big deal. Nobody's worried. I've already seen a lot of FUD, friends, starting to spread about Hyperliquid. Yeah, it's almost funny what people are sending me now. Like, watch out for FUD, CZ's about to liquidate Hyperliquid. And that just seems to me like, man, it's funny. It's so funny, it's ridiculous. Like, how can you even say that? Yeah, that's man. I mean, of course, I understand that CZ definitely doesn't like this, but when we're breaking one all-time high after another, to say CZ is coming to destroy Hyperliquid, cry me a river. Well, okay then. He can go right back to prison for all I care. I don't care what CZ does. Anyway, it's kind of funny. Yeah, like I get they don't like the competition, but yeah, I try to be a little bit rational about this. So, friends, let's take a look at what's going to happen today. Today? Where's my mouse? Up here. Today, we're going to have a packed afternoon. 1430 core PCE index, inflation, durable goods orders, GDP growth, and personal income and outlays. Yeah, today, 1410, 1430 will be interesting, so we can look forward to that. And that brings us back to the charts. I'll just quickly a faster recap of what happened last week. Last week, I was long in Bitcoin at this level. I held it the whole time. I expected at least a liquidity grab at 79,000, which didn't happen. We turned around and somewhere around here I cut the position because I didn't want to hold it over the weekend. That means that means, oh yeah, right, friends, I'm messed up. I see you now. That's Thursday. Today is a holiday. Yes, yes, yes. America has a holiday today. I'm sorry this isn't until Thursday, friends. I was even thinking as I read it, I stopped for a second and thought, man, today's supposed to be a holiday in America. How come this data's there? It's Thursday. Sorry, a big apology from my side. That's right. You're all correct in the comments. This is for Thursday. Today is a holiday in America. So, back to the chart. So I cut the position here at this spot because I was just afraid of what would happen over the weekend. I was afraid of some upcoming volatility and so on. And as you can see, at this point, if I'd held on, it would have been fine. I'd only be down about 0.3 R or something like that, and we would have been bought back up immediately. But I just didn't want to hold any exposure over the weekend. It seemed relatively pointless given how last week closed. And we'll get back to that now. So I just wanted to point out here that I cut this position, which means I wasn't involved. I wasn't in on this dip, and I'm not involved at the moment either. If we look at the little chart we drew earlier, well, this is the chart we drew before. This chart told us we have a range high, range low, and mid-range. We hit the mid-range in an ABC correction, and we don't want to see closes below the yellow. We saw a close below the yellow, an immediate engulfing candle, meaning a candle larger than the previous one that closed negatively. And we said we needed to see what would happen with this candle. This candle looked absolutely terrible back on Friday, but by Sunday, it had relatively recovered. Is the scenario saved? Definitely not. We're still not above the yellow. It's still a big problem. Ideally, we wanted to see us back above the yellow line by this candle. On the other hand, we created a swing failure. So it's like a drowning man clutching at straws here. Here, we have a swing failure of this weekly candle. So for me, it still makes sense to try and retest this yellow line and see if it'll be a successful retest, meaning a reclaim, or if it'll be a disaster, meaning will we just do this or will we do this and then this? And we'll continue toward my 79K target and then for this gap. So I think that at this moment, nothing is lost yet. If we look at the lower time frame, on the lower time frame, it means this. Yeah, on the lower time frame, we've been trading this range, which we traded both up and down over the weekend. This nice second spike took out everyone who went long too early. And now we're consolidating at the range high. For me, the absolute best scenario at this moment would be this one. But I won't lie, we could reclaim immediately and go straight to 79K. This means that the bottom we expected last week, where I said I'd be adding to my position, didn't happen for me because I cut it, didn't add, and instead I'm currently out of position. Which means that currently it makes sense to play the second part because we had it split into two parts, one liquidity, then the other liquidity. What happens after that is a big question mark, whether it dumps or not. But for me, right now, it makes a lot of sense to look for a move up. And now it's just a question of whether we get an ideal dip before then, which would be a dip to these lows. Yeah, and whether we'll retest this red line or if we'll just pick up from here and go straight up. I'm obviously waiting for this moment, which would make sense for me to go long again with the exact same context as last week. It would basically be the same entry. Before I had an entry somewhere around here, so now it would just be a bit higher. So for me, it would be ideal if we form something like this, given that, and thanks again for the correction, today is a US public holiday. In an ideal world, the markets would be closed and we'd see a little dip into this area today or tomorrow. Like every week, I'm here waiting for Tuesday for a liquidity sweep below the Monday low, but it never happens. So I'm very cautious about that now, which means alternatively, it definitely makes sense to jump in now on any dip, target the highs I mentioned, and average in. Basically, DCA into that long position, so you don't miss out again like before. Anyway, this is what currently makes the most sense to me in terms of how I expect Bitcoin's price action to develop. I still think this is like the last gasp of what we can expect from the bulls on Bitcoin. Basically, it feels like we're seeing the final push from those who are optimistic about the price going up. The bullish momentum seems to be fading, and this might be the last strong effort from buyers before things start to slow down. And so, given that the month is ending, and that month, yeah, let me mark this again. We really don't want the month to close below the monthly low. Last month's high, sorry, man, I'm really putting you through it today. First, it's not a holiday, then it is. I'm reading Thursday as Monday, monthly high is monthly low. Man, good luck following this. Anyway, we don't want the months to close below this red line, right? Because that would mean closing below the previous close, which combined with this gap and these two swing failures would obviously be bad. And ultimately, a close below this would be terrible. That would be a total disaster from a price action perspective. But when you look at it, those lines are just incredibly close. Yeah, this is the upper one, and this is the lower one that I'm saying we absolutely don't want the month to close below. And the month closes in 5 days, which means there's really no time for messing around here. This needs to maybe dip slightly and then head up if it's going to be saved. And that's why it makes sense to me, just like last week. Except last week, I got a bit spooked by the weekend and backed off. So it just makes sense to bet on this. From the perspective of saving that monthly candle and continuing upward for a few more weeks. So this is basically my setup for this week. To me, it makes sense to start averaging in right now. With the invalidation being if we start closing daily below this red piece of, sorry, I got a bit carried away again. If we start closing daily candles below this red line, then it's over and you have to cut it. Considering we have, what is it, the 30th is on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. So, friends, this means that for me, any dip here is a long opportunity because this is just a support we can't lose by the end of the month. So we have a time invalidation. In other words, yeah, it might make sense to start DCAing a bit now, or maybe go all in here. But any daily closes below this are a big problem in my opinion. Now, looking at the S&P 500, well, we probably don't even need to look. Jerka expected the resistance to hold here. It held twice, and then we broke through it like nothing. So that was really all we got. I was counting on that second dip a bit, but no, no, no. The dollar started rejecting from that red box we drew here. So far, so good. I think we're definitely heading into this gap. Then it's a question mark. Silver pumped slightly, gold pumped slightly. Everything's fine here, I guess. MicroStrategy is going for a retest. I'm almost certain we'll go for this gap and this low and this gap, which could be an interesting entry. Per was rejected back. Yeah, this is very interesting. That per was rejected back into the channel. Yeah, this is a bit of a tricky position. To me, this sell off made relative sense. But as we see, over the weekend, hype created another high and is pushing up again, meaning PUR will go up too. But it made rational sense that people would take profits at a level like this. It just made sense. So I'm not saying it's the end of the trend, definitely not, because we see it here in the hype and we see hype pushing further. But by the way, this is a fascinating weekly candle. 37.4%. That's just insane. This chart is something else. Charts like this make it worth being part of the crypto world. They come once in a while, but they do come. Friends, while we're at it, over the weekend I had a talk with a colleague who deals with fundamental analysis, and we decided to start following a few companies that I feel are close to us. I'm still resisting jumping into stocks and stuff like that, but it's true that robotic stocks and space-related stocks really appeal to me. And that's why we're going to start looking into this sector a bit. Don't worry, crypto is still my alpha and omega, but I just see, especially with robotics, it feels like we're in that phase. Well, you can't really invest much in it yet at this point, but otherwise, we're in that phase, basically crypto 2017. I think there's huge potential for the future. That's just how I see it. Do you plan on buying SpaceX? No, no, no. I don't plan on buying SpaceX, but I think the SpaceX IPO will be that wealth creation phase, where a lot of people will make crazy money. And I think these people will pour that money into other companies that, I mean, the profits that are involved, they're involved in space. And I think there will be an interesting opportunity there. Yeah. So we've decided to do a bit of a, that we'll start talking a little bit here about that. We'll just do some fundamental analysis on those other companies that have interesting potential. It's all ultra risky, of course, because robotics and space are just, it's the same as crypto right now. So no real products, no real revenues, just sort of speculation on something. But to me, I find it incredibly fascinating. And I generally believe in robotics. I generally believe that Musk is right, that in a few years there will be more robots running around than people, that it will solve basically population problems and so on. And I'm just convinced that's the direction it's going, although, of course, there's a lot of hate for Musk and so on. But I think in this main vision, he's right. And I think it makes sense to bet on it, especially when we talk about connecting AI with robots. I think it's going to be interesting. And I think there's going to be interesting money to be made from it. I think we're on the verge of crypto starting to show some interesting things. But generally, I think what this bull run has shown us currently is that potential diversification, even outside of crypto, should be part of our group now. And that's why I don't want to go in such a basically a style like, yeah, just that standard S&P 500, and just buying Mag 7 companies and the like. Although, of course, they outperformed very significantly. But to me, it makes more sense to look for those new sectors that could dominate the near future.